A 17-year-old gunned down in the heart of Towson as violence continues to rock Baltimore County.
3 incidents now in the past 3 weeks. Are we doing enough?
Until we stop crime, we've never done enough.
Our team pressing leaders on what they're doing to keep you safe. Some state lawmakers not happy with the new leader of Juvenile Services.
I think that his philosophy is one that is part of the problem.
Why they say he could make crime worse. A $9 million plan to revitalize the crime-ridden Edmondson shopping center. Fox 45 News questions city leaders if they can ensure this money will bring change less than 2 months after a student was murdered there.
A roller coaster of temperatures, how fast we could go from near freezing to record-breaking highs.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
I'm Kai Jackson. Fox 45 News is demanding answers tonight after another violent incident in Towson.
Police say a 17-year-old was shot and killed near Towson Circle last night. It is the second shooting to happen in that area in as many weeks. We've also reported on sexual assaults and rowdy crowds there.
And now we're hearing from two leaders who have very different takes on what's happening.
These are violent crimes. Consistent violent crime throughout Maryland, but it's coming into Towson and it's causing complete chaos.
We're going to do all that we can to make sure that Towson remains the safe place that it is. We welcome all people to visit Towson. It is a vibrant, bustling community.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel questioned county leaders about the violence.
And Jeff joins us live right now with their responses. We imagine they had a lot to say, Jeff.
You bet they did, but security is a lot tighter here in Towson tonight after a city high school student was gunned down right here in the middle of the road last night. It's part of a wave of violence that county leaders tonight are racing to stop. Minutes after a 17-year-old was gunned down in the heart of Towson, residents here were shaking their heads.
It's becoming a very unsafe place to live, and this is not what we expected living in Towson.
This was an argument between two groups of individuals. This was not, as best we know, any threat to the public at large.
Today, County Executive Johnny Olszewski was trying to convince residents that Towson is a safe place, repeating his refrain on crime.
And if you commit a crime, especially a violent crime, we're going to find you. We're going to arrest you.
But in the past 3 weeks, another shooting, a stabbing, and 3 rapes have happened just feet from the Towson Circle.
We often hear a lot of the same strong words after many violent incidents, but yet in your case, they continue to happen. 3 incidents now in the past 3 weeks. Are we doing enough?
Until we stop crime, we've never done enough.
The county executive says more officers have already been assigned to patrol the area, and other resources are also being discussed, including using public dollars to pay for private security.
We're openly exploring all avenues and all options to keep, again, not just Towson, but all of our communities safe.
Is unthinkable. And we absolutely have to put all our heads together, all hands on deck to stop this insanity. And it starts with getting tough on these violent criminals.
State Delegate Nino Mangione says Towson has become a product of a softer approach toward crime.
We've spent far too much time talking about coddling criminals and not how we stop them. It's something that's been allowed to happen for not just weeks, but years of this mindset that has allowed this. And now what we're seeing is the repercussions.
If you have any intention of coming to any of our neighborhoods and committing crime, let me just tell you, don't do it.
As the county vows to get tough, it could be a while before those who live here recover.
I love this community, and I love the people here, and we deserve better.
Well, a motive for last night's shooting still remains unclear tonight. We're live in Towson. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, we want to hear from you. Do you feel safe in Towson? 91% of voters so far say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
Brookfield Properties, which owns the Towson Town Center and implements a youth chaperone policy there, is considering bringing that policy to the mall in Columbia. That's after a string of fights and brawls took place. It's also requested beefed up police presence in Columbia, which was seen enforcing loitering rules last night.
Well, teenagers not just falling victim to crime lately. Fox 45 News has been hearing more examples of young people committing crime across the state. Last week, we learned a 16-year-old boy was arrested in connection with the January shooting at Edmondson Village shopping center that killed 16-year-old Deontay Dorsey. Earlier this month, 5 teenagers, including a 15-year-old, were arrested and charged after they ran from police during a traffic stop. Police say they tried to ditch a bag of guns and drugs. And now the state Senate has confirmed Governor Wes Moore's pick to lead the Department of Juvenile Services. But some lawmakers are worried Secretary Vincent Schiraldi will only make the situation worse. Fox 45's Keith Daniels has your Session 2023 coverage.
Well, Mary, we're live outside the Juvenile Justice Center on Gay Street. Now, Vincent Schiraldi will now lead this agency, confirmed today as the new DJS secretary. In Annapolis, before the vote, more debate from the Maryland Senate floor, consideration of Vincent Schiraldi, the governor's controversial pick to head the Department of Juvenile Services.
There has to be accountability, and there has to be some sticks to go with the carrots. There should be a focus on what we're going to do with violent juvenile offenders.
Schiraldi, who most recently oversaw the Corrections Department in New York City, has been the target of criticism. At one time, Schiraldi suggested that no criminal should be exposed to the adult system until they turn 21 or 25 years of age. He told a Senate committee last week that his philosophy centers around healing rather than punishing, and endorsed mentoring and wraparound services for violent teens.
I'm supporting this nominee, but I do have words of caution for this department and for this nominee.
In the end, the Senate, with a Democratic majority, voting 33-13 in favor of appointing Schiraldi as the new DJS secretary. A vote along party lines with Senator Justin Reedy.
We're not really holding young people accountable the way we should.
Among those 13 Republicans who voted against Schiraldi, opponents have called his strategies regarding juvenile justice dangerous for Maryland.
Frankly, the policy influence here in Annapolis seems to all be about how can we not be too hard on the criminal behavior. And while, of course, we want to rehabilitate youth, there is not enough of an emphasis on actual discipline and accountability and consequences for criminal behavior.
Looming concerns for the senator over the new secretary.
My job as an elected official is to work with whoever's in the positions of leadership. So I voted against the nomination, but I certainly will. I'm open to discussing and figuring how we can be helpful in doing the right thing.
Well, Governor Wes Moore released a statement that says, in part, he remains confident in Schiraldi. He says the new secretary will work to improve public safety and outcomes for youth, not only in Baltimore City, but across the state. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Fox 45 News will cover Session 2023 and how lawmakers handle public safety. We're helping make your voices heard. You can scan the QR code on your screen to see a list of email addresses and phone numbers of your local representatives.
City Council President Nick Mosby isn't holding back his frustration over the BGE Conduit contract.
It's a story that we've been following closely. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues demanding answers from Mayor Brandon Scott.
Mayor Brandon Scott is not backing down from this deal, maintaining he believes the contract has been approved. City Council President Nick Mosby says he thinks the mayor skirted the rules and says this contract could negatively impact generations to come. The Conduit concerns continue. This time, City Council President Nick Mosby not mincing words.
I don't know one elected official, federal, state, or local, that supports this deal and this agreement. And particularly the way it's happened, with the exception of the mayor.
Mosby says Mayor Brandon Scott kept him and Comptroller Bill Henry in the dark about the contract details.
It's not the first time that there's been a breakdown in communication or a lack of respect for the council as it relates to deals like this.
Do you know who drafted the contract in the first place?
I don't know, but that was a question that one of the council members asked at the last hearing. I just don't understand how, if the city wrote it, that serves as the best interest for the city of Baltimore.
Hours after speaking with Mosby, we asked Mayor Scott, who drafted the contract?
well, we can get you all that information.
The mayor's office telling Fox 45 News in writing, quote, lawyers for the city and BGE wrote the Conduit contract, along with former city solicitor Jim Shea, who was the chairman of the Venable law firm, which helped BGE's parent company, Exelon, merge with Pepco in 2016. As for the timing of the deal, the mayor says he did everything by the book. Can you explain the timeline of when exactly did you begin communication with the city council, specifically the council president, about this Conduit contract with BGE?
So what I'll say is that this council president got a briefing on this at an appropriate time. As you saw and heard us say the other day, they knew that we would have to enter into an agreement.
We also asked the mayor's office what process was followed when approving the contract, including public input and transparency. The mayor's team telling Fox 45 News this BGE contract has received more public input than most agreements, and the council president and comptroller can receive briefings if they choose. When was the contract itself presented to you or other members of the council before it was put on the BOE agenda?
We learned about it through the media.
And Mosby says that was just a few weeks before the BOE vote. With the upcoming city council investigative hearing Thursday, Mosby says he expects more answers from the mayor and his administration, including why the city spent $50,000 on a consultant to study the conduit system in the first place.
I don't think this thing was thought through really well. I think it was clearly rushed. And I think it was in the best interest of not the citizens of Baltimore. And it was a slap in the face associated with what voters went out and voted for last November.
The council president says he wants to know what the consultant found while studying the conduit and what's next for the city's own employees tasked with working on the conduit itself.
This decision is going to affect generations. That's obvious, right? We know that the Department of Transportation Conduit Division is going to be decimated.
Mosby says he's hopeful the Attorney General will take a look at this and offer an opinion about whether the contract itself was able to be approved during that BOE meeting. The mayor says he believes he did not break any rules, and so far the AG hasn't said anything. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News spoke with City Comptroller Bill Henry, who was opposed to the deal on Sunday. The comptroller tells Fox 45 the city was forced to rush the Conduit deal so BGE could get tax benefits from the investment.
We're still going to be charging fees to the other users, but now instead of paying us a fee, which is just money out of their pocket coming into the city so that the city can have this work done, BGE can do the work themselves and take advantage of all sorts of different tax breaks so that they will be effectively paying less money to do what is effectively about the same amount of work.
Well, that deal was approved in time for BGE to include the capital improvements in their rate hike proposal to the Public Service Commission. Now, the company is asking to increase customers' utility bills by a little more than $10 a month for each of the 3-year proposal. You can find our full interview with Comptroller Bill Henry on our YouTube page. Just point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. That will take you there. You can also search foxbaltimore.com on YouTube to find our page.
Well, made it up to 63 degrees today. And take a look to our north. Yes, there are winter weather advisories, and that is only the beginning. There are also some winter storm warnings and blizzard warnings out in northern portions of the Midwest. But for us, we are south of that. So although it will get cooler for tomorrow, we're not expecting the wintry weather. Temperature at 44 at 11, mostly clear skies. Clouds increase, though, again at 5 a.m., 36 and 39 at 9 a.m. And those clouds associated with some warmer air making the stand again. I'll let you know when we could threaten records, my Weather Authority forecast.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, a controversial bill that would allow childhood vaccines without parental consent pulled from Annapolis. But we kept digging what we found in the sponsor's investment records. Parents taking matters into their own hands, the latest effort to pressure Maryland 529 to hand over access to funds families say they deserve. And in November, voters overwhelmingly approved a local control of Baltimore City Police. But tonight, who actually provides oversight remains a mystery for now.
A Maryland lawmaker has temporarily withdrawn a controversial bill that would allow minors to get vaccines without their parents' consent.
Senator Cheryl Kagan now claims the bill needs more medical research, but as Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor explains, a closer look into her finances has some questioning her true intentions.
Yeah, after uncovering Senator Kagan's latest financial disclosure statements, I learned that she owns stock in several vaccine companies, which is only adding to the backlash of her bill, which would have allowed minors to receive vaccines but not refuse them.
Blurring the line between the public's best interest and her personal finances, an investigation into Senator Cheryl Kagan's investments, raising ethical concerns over Senate Bill 378. The bill would have lowered the age a Maryland minor can consent to a vaccine without their parents' permission from 18 to 14. However, those under the age of 14 could still receive vaccines on their own with a doctor's approval. The legislation going on to state that while a child can consent to a vaccine despite their parents' objection, a child cannot refuse a vaccine their parent wants them to receive.
So this isn't really about medical freedom. This is about pushing vaccines and really making it easier to get a vaccine rather than not getting the vaccine.
Questioning the reasoning behind the bill, Fox 45 reaching out to Senator Kagan's office 3 times over the last 2 weeks, asking, how can a child have the capacity to consent to the vaccine but not refuse it? And do you not trust parents to make informed decisions for their own children? Her office refusing to respond. Meanwhile, Senator Kagan's latest financial disclosure statement revealing of the 3 companies she owns stock in, 2 of them major vaccine manufacturers.
It's really difficult to ignore this connection between the companies that she has stock in and the vaccines and what she's doing with this legislation.
Taxpayer advocate David Williams calling those investments a conflict of interest. And although the bill has since been withdrawn, Williams says the ethical concerns can't be erased.
This wasn't well thought out. When you are withdrawing your legislation, it shows that there is a problem.
Taking to Twitter, Kagan writing, quote, despite the fact that 17 states have allowed minor access to vaccines, my bill needed more research before it could be enacted in Maryland. However, Kagan pulling back on the legislation just 2 days after Fox 45 ran a story on parental pushback.
I'm against it.
I would not agree to that.
Why wouldn't they trust parents not to make that decision?
Moving forward, Williams says a close eye should be kept on Kagan's future legislative proposals and her pocketbook.
This is way beyond just one piece of legislation. This is something that needs to be monitored very closely because I can almost guarantee you this has happened in the past and it's going to happen in the future.
Now, I also asked Kagan's office this afternoon if she thought introducing this legislation could have been seen as a conflict of interest. Again, I did not hear back. Reporting in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, Maryland's new state treasurer is pledging to get answers about the state's embattled college trust. Maryland 529 has been under scrutiny for more than a year now following an alleged interest calculation error. That error causing the agency to block parents from accessing all of the money in their accounts and ultimately slashing many of their savings by thousands of dollars. Before a joint session of the General Assembly, Treasurer Davis said enough is enough.
I'm not promising to be nice about it, and I'm not promising to be polite about it. We've tried that. We've tried that for 18 months, and it hasn't worked. And now it's time to do what needs to be done. Our parents, and more importantly, our children deserve better, and they're going to get better.
Well, parents will once again be in Annapolis tomorrow, and we know one is taking his frustration out with a new radio ad and digital billboards across the area.
Now, coming up at 10:30 on Fox 45, we're following the money as the city prepares to give millions of dollars to revamp Edmondson Village. We're asking how leaders will make sure it's not wasted.
A social event put on by a California school district, specifically excluding employees based on the color of their skin. I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington.
And threatening record high temperatures by the end of this week. Take a look Thursday. After a cooler day tomorrow, the forecast 78, the record high from 1874 is 78 degrees. And then look at this into the weekend. The blue, that's snow coming out on some of the computer models. European, that's on the left. The American GFS on the right, looking like a little bit less, but maybe some flurries around. monster changes on a roller coaster forecast. I'm going to break it down for you day by day, hour by hour in a couple of minutes.
Well, the debate over race education in American classrooms continues across the nation.
National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the latest on the debate in California.
A school district in San Francisco holding a celebration for employees earlier this month as a way to ring in the new semester. White employees barred from attending.
Any sort of affinity group or separating people by race, whether it's students or teachers, that is segregation, it's racism, it's wrong, and it's unconstitutional.
District officials sending out a reminder that white employees are not invited because there remains uneasiness and mistrust, and we need this to be a safe space for our people of color.
Education systems across the country still struggling with how to teach race in the classroom. Many Republican states banning the controversial critical race theory from being taught in classrooms, but teachers admitting they're defying those rules.
You're going to still have some teachers who want to flout these laws because they think that they're the experts. They think they know better than parents what kids should learn in the classroom.
The group Accuracy in Media capturing these sentiments from teachers through a hidden camera investigation.
So you say that the law doesn't change anything?
It really doesn't. We do not follow much of what Abbott is trying to get us to.
In Florida, teachers openly ridiculing the state's decision to have books containing pornography, CRT, and gender identity removed from schools. One teacher had students participate in a series of TikTok videos mocking the rules.
A black boy? No, absolutely not. What you reading? The hate you give? I'm gonna give you something to hate.
In another video, the same teacher had all of the white students act like servants to the black students. Proponents of race-based teaching, like the Chicago Teachers Union, argue they're teaching students the truth about racism in America, a lesson they see as necessary for this generation to right historical wrongs. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
One of Minnesota's largest school districts is leaving gender identity communications up to its students. St. Paul Public Schools implemented its gender inclusion policy in response to some of its students facing harassment. The policy instructs teachers to honor students' preferred names and pronouns. Now, this is with or without parental consent. The school system's goal is for students to feel comfortable and safe. Critics say such policies exclude parents from important conversations.
Parents care for their kids more than teachers do, way more than teachers do, more than school administrators do. And it's really their fundamental right to be included in these decisions regarding their children.
Well, St. Paul Public Schools policy also prohibits separation based on gender in several instances, such as when teachers are lining up their students. Sinclair Broadcast Group reached out to the school district for comment, but has not heard back.
The city law department admitting no one has authority over the Baltimore Police Department right now. Why that's the case and how long it could take before the city takes control.
Maryland lawmakers addressing fights in schools across the state, the steps they're taking to protect teachers from violent outbursts and those who try to break up fights. We're following three big stories at 10:30.
The Supreme Court is debating a case that could change the internet as we know it. A closer look at the arguments and the big changes it could make.
Maryland lawmakers addressing violence in classrooms. The new bill they're debating that would not just protect teachers, but those who also try to break up fights.
The city of Baltimore moving forward to commit $9 million for the revitalization of the long-troubled Edmondson Shopping Center, where 5 students were shot last month. 1 died.
And residents have long complained about open-air drug activity in the area. Our own cameras have captured some of it.
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell questioning city leaders on how they will ensure that taxpayer money will bring change.
Right now, the sale of the Edmondson Village Shopping Center is pending, and the future private owner has released plans for the new development. Some city leaders say contributing to this project is critical for the area. On North Avenue, the long-standing Edmondson Village shopping center has become a staple in the community, and not without its share of problems. The recent mass shooting that claimed the life of a 16-year-old high school student, open-air drug deals, fires, and empty storefronts, leading to collective calls for change.
My name is Lanier Richardson. I'm the CEO of Chicago Trend.
Real estate investment group Chicago Trend is poised to purchase the troubled property for more than $17 million. The CEO crowdfunding the project, and on this website providing rough renderings of the future Edmondson Village shopping center. Plans including the construction of a grocery store.
We've had a lot of violence in the Edmondson Village community, not only this year, but in years past. And, there's been just long-term disinvestment along the corridor. And so I think it's a huge deal.
Baltimore City Councilman Christopher Burnett, one of 6 members of the Ways and Means Committee to approve $9 million for the project. When questioned, Burnett saying the money can only be used to fund capital projects. How will you ensure this $9 million will be well spent?
We have, there's audits, there's oversight that the finance department is in charge of. And so we make sure we're working with them to ensure it's, that they're fiscally responsible with the city dollars and, taxpayers' money.
Millions of dollars for a plaza plagued with problems and a community desperate for change. Now, according to the developer's website, this sale should go through by April. As for the $9 million in funding from the city, it will now go to City Council for a full vote. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, developing tonight, a man shot and gravely wounded on South Pulaski Street shortly after 6. This is in the heart of the Carrollton Ridge neighborhood in southwest Baltimore. We're told that man was rushed to the hospital, but Baltimore City Police have notified homicide detectives. At this point, no information on the gunman.
City residents make their voices heard tonight during a city council committee hearing to talk about local control of the Baltimore Police Department. City voters approved a charter amendment to move the department from state to local control in November. The city could have taken control at the beginning of the year, but it hasn't happened yet. The Local Control Advisory Board in charge of that transition is proposing a longer timeline for the change that could take another year. The law department says right now, no one has a legislative authority over the Baltimore Police Department. At tonight's meeting, both city council members and residents urged the mayor and local control board to move faster.
Don't think we should do is further delay the transfer of legislative authority to the Baltimore City Council.
Over 82% of Baltimore voters voted for this. We want the City Council, our local elected legislators, to be legislative authority to make change to BPD. Further delay is not acceptable.
But the Baltimore City Police Department has been under state control for a little more than 160 years. In 2021, state lawmakers approved legislation that gave the decision to voters. Councilman Robert Stokes says he plans to introduce a resolution Monday calling on state lawmakers to pass legislation that would put the police department under local control immediately.
An $11 million investment to improve the Enoch Pratt free library system was announced today. Mayor Brandon Scott and library employees coming together, revealing the funds will be used to increase internet access at branches and renovate buildings. The money is coming from the American Rescue Plan funds. Marilyn Mosby's former lead attorney A. Scott Bolden was not found in criminal contempt. He was facing the charge for comments he made while representing the former city state's attorney. Bolden was admonished in court today, but a judge dismissed the charge. Last month, all 6 attorneys for the former city state's attorney stepped down. Marilyn Mosby, now represented by a public defender, the federal public defender, is expected to stand trial on 4 federal charges this summer.
Turning to the crisis in the classroom, from Baltimore City to Baltimore County and beyond, Fox 45 News has seen fights break out at some schools. In some cases, students have been seriously hurt. Now, Maryland lawmakers are debating a new bill that would provide teachers with better legal protection when it comes to preventing school fights. Kelly Lynn with our Sinclair sister station in Washington has more.
A 14-year-old boy suffers a fractured skull in a fight 4 years ago at Magruder High in Durwood. It's an example of the kind of violence educators witness inside schools. But should they get involved?
I often have to tell teachers the sad truth that if they observe a fight, that they are not protected if they try to intervene. Therefore, they shouldn't get involved because they will have no legal protections.
The issue is before the Maryland General Assembly. House Bill 137 seeks to protect teachers who intervene in fights from liability related to property damage or personal injury.
What this bill does is it provides very narrow immunity for teachers, administrators, school staff members who are acting in good faith.
Republican State Delegate Robin Grammer Jr. sponsored the legislation.
What does the current law state right now?
There's no protection at all, really. Current law states that if there is some kind of case, the boards of education will have to represent teachers.
7 News reached out to teachers groups to find out what they think of the legislation and received this response from the Montgomery County Education Association. Schools must be safe working and learning environments. Neither educators nor students should be put in harm's way or forced to confront violence in the course of the school day. We educators are calling for the resources and systems needed to promote safety, trust, and mutual care for all. At a recent hearing, Maryland teacher Franca Muller-Paz told lawmakers educators need broader support.
I could not live with myself if I stood by and watched young people violently hurt each other and did nothing.
Making headlines right now, a former Baltimore teacher accused of sex abuse and rape will be released from jail as he awaits trial. In court today, a Baltimore County Circuit judge ruled in favor of Chris Benden. Benden was fired earlier this year from the Gilman School and arrested 3 weeks ago. He's accused of sexually abusing a teen. Benden maintains his innocence. A preliminary hearing is set for next Friday.
Taking a look now at the Fox box. Top left, a new poll suggests a majority of Americans oppose using race and ethnicity in college admissions. A Reuters and Ipsos poll found 62% were against the practice.
On the top right, Vanderbilt University is apologizing after using artificial intelligence to craft an email regarding the Michigan State University shooting. An associate dean for the university, equity and inclusion, issued a follow-up email calling the original poor judgment and that there would be a review.
Bottom left, 28 organizations led by the right-leaning Defense of Freedom Institute have sent an open letter opposing the U.S. Department of Education's expansion Title IX policies to include protections for transgender student athletes. They claim the proposals are unfair for biological women.
On the bottom right, a Pentagon email server may have been leaking internal communications for 2 weeks. The Department of Defense confirmed the exposure to Fox News. Special operations emails were included. The DoD has not returned a request for comment by Sinclair Broadcast Group.
Well, lawyers for the family of an American student killed in the 2015 Paris terrorist attacks appeared before a Supreme Court today.
They're suing YouTube's parent company, Google, arguing the platform aided ISIS by allowing their videos to be posted and promoted.
National correspondent Atra El-Nishar explains.
In a landmark case before the Supreme Court, Gonzalez versus Google, 2 laws may be at odds with each other. One of them, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, is designed to allow online platforms to prosper free of liability. The other, the Anti-Terrorism Act, meant to deter and punish acts of terrorism.
Can you run an internet operation if you're responsible for everything that comes over the wire? We've got a fundamental issue here about communications, about the freedom of communications, and whether you're actually aiding foreign terrorists when you allow for the dissemination of the information.
The family of Nahemi Gonzalez, killed in the 2015 Paris attacks, has lost in lower courts. They want accountability from YouTube for ISIS videos on the site. Tech companies say changing Section 230 would mean they either moderate all content or none of it, comparing that outcome to a digital Wild West. During Tuesday's oral argument, some of the justices questioned if this is a decision instead for Congress. Now, if they punt the issue to lawmakers, it may give tech companies only temporary reprieve because Section 230 reforms have been a rare area of bipartisan agreement. Efforts to prevent misinformation or preserve political speech have been partisan priorities. But in recent months, nearly unanimous agreement, Congress needs to make the internet safer for kids.
Unless there is a provable effort by these companies to police their own product, they would be exposed to liability.
If these companies think they're going to be on the hook for multi-$100 million or more fines and damages from multiple suits all across the country, they'll change their act.
Lawmakers slow to act on these goals, pending a legislative breakthrough or definitive ruling from the Supreme Court, which this court tends to avoid. Big tech goes unchecked. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Nashar reporting.
We want to know what you think. Should social media companies be responsible for what's posted on their sites? Point your phone's camera to the QR code on your screen and join the conversation. A former Columbia teacher who worked to keep her students fed during the pandemic has now started a chain reaction. We introduce you to this week's champion of courage.
And we've got temperatures that'll be settling down into the 30s after highs in the low to mid 60s today. Some clouds, and eventually after the morning commute, some rain could be moving in. I'll let you know when we'll have rain, when we could hit near 80, and when there could be snow, all in the same forecast. That's coming up in a couple of minutes.